Hey, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to cover 9 different sampler plugins in AAX format that you can use in Pro Tools to make beats. Before I get into that, my name's Lucas. Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to check out my website where I have a bunch of free and paid downloads. It really helps to support the channel so I can keep making free videos like this. Just a little bit of background about why I made this video. People that use Ableton Live, FL Studio, Cubase, and Logic, and those types of DAWs have a very robust beat making ecosystem that's already built into the DAW. As it turns out, Pro Tools doesn't really quite have such an intuitive beat making process. Therefore, I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of finding different AAX plugins that I can use for choosing drum samples and creating beats. So we're gonna hop right into Pro Tools right now. I'm gonna show you 9 different plugins. Some of them I would recommend checking out, others I do not recommend checking out, and I'll go over some of the things to look out for if you're shopping for sampler plugins. Alright, so here we are in Pro Tools. The first plugin I'm going to cover is a really cool plugin that you should definitely check out. So this is called XO by XLN Audio, and this one uses a sample library scanning system to essentially map out all of your different drum samples on this chart right here. Some people will hate this, some people will love it, but you gotta say that you can find some stuff that you didn't even know that you had in your library here. So the way that it works is we can browse around for samples like this, and then when we press this button it loads up here, and you can actually program a simple sequence here, and it actually has this similarity function, which is really cool, as well as a history function, which I've never seen in a plugin before, and this is definitely one of the coolest ways to browse for samples if you like this format. And you can do that for all these different hits. It's a little limited as far as how, you only get these 8 slots and you can't really rename them. You have a simple sequencer here, and you also have some controls, but then when you go to the edit window, we have much more control. We can do different routing. There's master effects, which are really neat, and then you have the sequencer here. So the real limitation of this plugin, you can create some really cool patterns for sure, but this type of pattern situation is a little limited if you need to make something that's a little more complicated than electronic, than standard electronic or hip-hop beats, but it's still great for getting your ideas down. That's XO. I definitely highly recommend checking this one out. It's one of the coolest ones on the market. Next, I'm going to show you this plugin called TAL Drum. So this is one that I actually found recently. So this does not include any type of sequencing, but it is a fantastic and very streamlined beat pad layout where you can load all your own samples. It has a great browser with color coding, and it has a pretty nice mixer here as well. So there's some basic effects that you can put on any of the pads if you want, like lo-fi effects and saturation, which are great. And you can basically drag and drop any of your samples, hot swap them, and this is a pretty great one. It doesn't have a sequencer, but who needs that, because you can just use Pro Tools to sequence really well using MIDI. So this is one of the best ones in this video. I would highly recommend checking it out if you don't need a sequencer and you purely just want to browse for samples. This one is very sleek, it runs very smoothly in Pro Tools, so I can't recommend it enough. This is TAL Drum. It's also very reasonably priced as well. Okay, the third one that I'm going to cover is a classic plugin. This is called Battery by Native Instruments. So this one's been around for a while. It went through a period of time where it wasn't really getting updated. It was kind of glitchy, but luckily Native Instruments has been updating all their stuff recently, so this is a very reasonable contender. I would say this one's probably a little bit outdated at this point, but it has a pretty similar browsing situation, so you can drag and drop your samples from here. You got plenty of effects and plenty of controls that you can do, including modulation and an editor and stuff. So Battery's really good as well. If you don't need a sequencer built in, this one seems to work pretty well. I would probably lean more towards TAL Drum honestly over this, just because of how sleek it is. But Battery works really well, especially if you already have Native Instruments complete. You can just start using that right away. So there's Battery. The fourth plugin that I'm going to cover is also a Native Instruments one. Now, this one is one of the ones that you would get if you purchased hardware. So Maschine comes with a drum pad controller that you can use, and I had one a while ago but ended up selling it because I didn't really need to play anything on the pads. But nonetheless, Maschine is a great browsing and sequencing plugin. So you have a full sequencer here where you can load in your sounds, a full browser as you'd expect, Native Instruments style. I would say the one thing about this plugin that I'm not a huge fan of is just the way that you go through these different menus to sculpt the sounds. I find it to be a little bit clunky for me personally, but I've seen some producers make incredible music in Maschine, and you know, all power to them. So if you're looking for a sequencer and some hardware bundled together, this would be a really good one to get. You can make all kinds of crazy stuff in it, and it works really well in Pro Tools. All right, so the fifth one I'm gonna go over is Reason Rack plugin. So this one's actually a bit outdated. It definitely doesn't make the top of my list here, but you could still make whatever you want using Reason Rack. It's a great ecosystem. There's actually multiple drum plugins that you could use within Reason depending on which version that you have, but this Kong Drum Designer works pretty well for me. You have pads, you drag and drop. It's pretty straightforward. You have some basic editing features, but it's, you know, not super robust, and this would definitely get the job done. I wouldn't recommend this, but I would say that Reason Rack has quite a lot of other useful effects for general mixing and production, so you get a lot of bang for your buck with the Reason ecosystem, so you should definitely check it out at some point. The next one I'm going to show you is the elephant in the room. This is the Avid included plugin called Groove Cell. I don't really recommend this in any capacity because it's missing a browser. No one wants to go to Finder to find samples. You have some controls here, but it's pretty limited, so I really hope Avid updates this and makes it much more robust. So without a browser, I'm not really going to use that. The next one is a really interesting one that I actually don't recommend. One thing to look out for with plugins is you need to see if they're continually being updated. This is a really cool plugin that I'm extremely saddened to say I don't recommend getting, but I wanted to show it off because you should definitely check it out and see if it works on your computer. This is called Geist II by FXpansion, and it has a great browser, pad layout here, and this incredible sequencer that lets you draw in MIDI notes as well as do automation in a way that I've never seen before. So as an example, you can choose one of these parameters like pitch shift, and you can actually do these crazy automations here to make detuned hi-hats or whatever else you want to do. It does reverse, it does all kinds of stuff. So really cool editing layout here. It's just an extremely robust plugin. You can have a bunch of different kits. You can make crazy beats that you would never be able to make in any other plugin, but it's pretty buggy. They haven't updated it since 2020. I really hope that they can revitalize this plugin because it's one of the coolest ones. I would not recommend buying it unless you know for sure it works on your system. So this is called Geist II. The next plugin is another one that you would get if you purchase hardware. So this is called Akai MPC Studio, and obviously you have to purchase one of the Akai controllers to be able to use this. I had one at one point, but ended up selling it because I didn't really find that the workflow fit my needs. The Akai ecosystem is very powerful if you come from that background, if you're familiar with using MPCs and how the workflow works. But if you're used to a normal DAW workflow, this ecosystem can be extremely confusing. So if we just look at this plugin right now, it's really cluttered. There's a bunch of different windows. It's hard to figure out how to do just like some basic things. This one is super complicated to use, but if you're into that Akai workflow and you're trying to get the hardware, you could definitely make some really cool beats in this. The Akai hardware feels amazing. I think they make some of the best pads that you can get, but the workflow just doesn't fit my needs, and this software is just way too cluttered for me to really make anything creative out of it, so I would not recommend this, but you should definitely check out Akai if you're looking for drum pads. So that's kind of the main competitor to Maschine. And the last two plugins will just be honorable mentions. So one of them is called Sitala. If you're on a budget, it's only 20 bucks, and it's a pretty sleek looking plugin. However, I wasn't trying to buy it because I already have a million plugins, as you can see. So that one's a good one to check out in AAX format. And another one to check out is Steinberg Groove Agent. So the SE version comes included with Cubase, but it actually happens to run as an AAX plugin, and I don't really recommend this one because it's way too cluttered, especially the browser is really hard to work with. It is a very robust sampler, so a lot of Cubase users make some crazy stuff in it, but for me it's just too cluttered and not very useful in Pro Tools. Well, there you have it. There's all the different AAX drum sampler plugins that I could find for Pro Tools over the years. Let me know if I missed anything, and let me know in the comments which ones you're using. Also, don't forget to check out my website. The link's in the description if you want to book me for one-on-one sessions or go download some of my sample packs and templates. It directly supports the channel, which goes a long way for me to create more of these free videos. So let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.